So today I'm going to show you how to make, or how I made, some skis for my buddy's Black Hawk quad. It's I've been flying this now for several months, and once we got snow on the ground, it became unmanageable. It just wasn't going to work very well. I couldn't get the rollout I needed to get the wing inflation and the movement I needed to manage any level of snow. It just wasn't very effective. So I decided to build some skis, and after some consideration, I decided snowboards were the best way to go. So here's how I built that. I bought two snowboards off of Craigslist. They were $10 a piece for a couple of old snowboards, and they worked perfectly. You get the width and the contour you need. It's already designed in there for you. The surface is exactly what you need, and it's got the metal edge on the side, so it cuts and steers like it's supposed to. I had some scrap steel laying around, 1/8 inch by 2 inch. Just basic steel, spring steel, and I bent this in a vise, so I've got 1.25 inches here at the first bend, and then I bent it up to about 20 degrees or so. There's no real science to any of this. That's 5 inches, 5 inches on the backside, and another 1.25 inches. So you end up with what is that, 10, 12.5 inches. Yeah, 5, 10, 11, 12.5 inches total length on each support. And then I just used some tubing that I had that was appropriate to the axle diameter. The axle shafts on the quad are 5/8. So this is 1 inch tubing, and then I got some 5/8 washers. And what I did was I bent up the steel to the size I wanted, and once I got one made, I made 4 others that match this side by side. So that was real easy. Any adjustment you need to make, you just go ahead, and once you've got it bent up, you can set it on the ground, and then just slowly hit it with a hammer and get all your heights just right. And you can flatten out your attachment points here, using the driveway as a platform, and just get all 4 pieces just the way you want it, and then set this snowboard up underneath the quad, so that it's in the position you want. Set the bracket underneath the axle, and then slide the tube over the axle and let it rest, and with the washers in place and everything. And basically what will happen is the whole system will self-align. Run the nut up, and that draws the washers up to the axle tube up on top of your platform. And when you get everything just the way you want it, and the angles will match and everything for you, then just go ahead and put a quick tack on everything so nothing moves. Then you can lift that part off. I know you don't like my welds. I don't like my welds, but they work. And that'll hold everything where you want it and just the way you want it. And you go ahead and take it off, and then weld everything up nice and solid. And then you just bolt through with some, I think I used 5/16 bolts, carriage bolts, so they're smooth on the bottom side, and there's very little drag in the snow. There's more than enough support here. You don't need to use double bolts on each end. There's no distortion or rock in this whole thing. They work really well. They really do. The one change I would make is with the front skis, and these are the front skis. When I set everything up for the initial tack weld, I would probably put a 1-inch block on the outside edge of the ski. Maybe even a 2-inch block, so the skis were cantered to the inside on both sides. And what that would do is allow a more effective turning. Now, I've had folks tell me they can go ahead and run a skeg down the middle. I don't like that idea nearly as much. I like the idea of having these turned up on both outside edges, so that as you turn toward the snow, as you present the board toward the snow, the designed cutting edge that the snowboard manufacturers use is what's turning your cart, and should present some pretty effective turning. Now, how I'm gonna how I'm going to make that change rather than grinding all this off and redoing it. I'm just going to go ahead and cut about 80% of the way through here, twist this steel to the position I want so that I get the lift I'm looking for, and then go ahead and re-weld that cut, and that should give me the change I need without me having to rebuild these brackets. But that's basically the idea. These work really well, and I'll try to include some footage of my ground control and then takeoff and landings. And I've flown these several times and they work really well. So also with skis, a lot of guys will attach bungee cords to the front of the ski up to some point on the quad. I didn't like that idea very much. You're relying on the bungee cord to hold the ski in an upward orientation. And I don't really like that idea. If the bungee fails, then you come in with a ski hanging down like this, and that could be tragic. So rather than that, what I use, and on my particular quad, we have a threaded axle instead of a pinned axle. So I just use the lock nut to cinch down on this axle tube, and it holds the ski in perfect orientation so that it's the same position, takeoffs and landings, and so far, there's been absolutely no issue with it whatsoever. So I thought, since I took the time to tell you to use your bench vise to make your bends, I would illustrate how that basically works. So I went ahead and set this piece of steel in so that it's flush with the bottom of this position, which is right at 1 inch. And then by the time I'm done with the bend, this ends up being a full 1.25 inches. But let me show you how that bends. It's really very easy. So I would normally use a rubber mallet. In fact, I've got one. Let me grab it. Okay, so you get the position you want. I used a level to make sure that this was completely vertical, and knowing that this was horizontal, I knew I'd get a nice clean bend right here. So start applying some pressure, but you don't want it to bend anywhere up here. You want your bend right there. So start applying some pressure, and then with your rubber mallet, just start to apply some impact at this point. It will ensure a nice clean bend for you. And like I said, this isn't high production science. This is just the simple shop build, but you get a nice clean bend there. Okay, if this isn't right for you, don't worry about it, because later on, when you make your second bend and you bring this down on this angle, and then your third bend, and you're completely done. If things aren't right, you can simply place this on the roadway, on the driveway, or on your bench, and you can affect. Let me see here. You can affect a change to this angle if you find that that's pitched up or down. Just simply, with your rubber mallet, bend that back flat. Once you've got this whole thing sitting, the whole assembly is sitting flush. You can work all your angles real easy so that everything's just where you want it. And then you go ahead, when you're all done, and you place your tube on the top point of your assembly, and pin it all together on the axle. And once you got everything where you want it, tack it, and then weld it all up. And it's a done deal. It's really a simple build. Here's a still shot of the quad finished, skis installed. Here's another as the brackets were being laid up. One more from a different angle, but you can see how easy it would be to match the brackets. And another in the finished configuration. Okay, here's some video of the first attempt with the new skis, just taxi around on the snow. Somebody had been in the field and tore it up quite a bit, so there's a lot of ruts and exposed dirt, but it did pretty well. Ground handling was pretty good. I've made a couple of changes since then, and they handled very well. Very pleased with them. this is not the first flight, but this is a flight from today, earlier today. I was actually flying a big tandem wing, so it was a little slow coming up, but again, the skis make everything so much easier. Launching that wing, so much easier. So it handles real well. The skis stay in the correct orientation during flight. They don't cause any additional drag. They weigh less than my standard tires and wheels. So it's a win-win all the way on this. And then you can see on approach, the skis stay in the correct orientation for a safe approach. And so there were no bad characteristics with that. And here is my landing today. Again, came in nice and slow, and I touched down about 70 or 80 yards before the truck, and then just slowly throttled back, and I had no problems at all. So that's the video. 12 minutes. Hopefully that was enough information for you, and hopefully these pictures give you what you need to build your own set of skis. Have fun.